How does an Australian living in Atlanta, USA, who owns a wood products business in China end up creating a volleyball sport documentary between a high school team in the USA traveling to China to play against five university teams? If you want to know that story and how it's becoming a huge documentary, then you're in the right place. Let's go.
Hi folks, welcome to the Moving Beyond Being Good podcast by Gary Ryan from Organisations That Matter. In this podcast, Gary shares everything about servant leadership, service leadership, authentic leadership, how to create high performance cultures, service excellence, and life balance. Here's your host, Gary Ryan.
Thank you, Sienna, for your lovely introduction. Justin Fuller, it's an absolute delight to have you on the Moving Beyond Being Good podcast, all the way from Atlanta in the USA. Your business is based in China. Let's go to that to start with. Welcome.
No worries, Gaz. The pleasure is absolutely all yours. Don't worry.
Tell us about the business that you've been in for 20 years now and being based in Atlanta, and yet you're running a business in China. Like, that's a bit of complexity, and
Yeah,
yet major clients Australia.
it is. Ironically enough, I'm a good old homegrown Aussie boy living in Atlanta who owns a timber manufacturing company in China, the usual, right? Built it about 20 years ago. I spent a decade and change or more running sawmills and timber production companies in Australia. Did a stint for about 4 or 5 years in Fiji doing the same. And I was young enough and stupid enough to recognize that I'd spent a decade fixing other people's factories and not making any money. So I thought it was time to build my own. So I just hooked over to China and decided I was going to start making engineered wood products. So I toured around China. I found a factory that was sort of built but not doing great, and did what I do and helped work on it and fix it. I ended up going into a partnership with that factory, and over the last 20 years, I've sort of grown it and own it and taken control of it, and here we are.
So, yeah, how does a Melbourne boy end up in partnership with folk from in China, like not just with people from China, but in China, and then you end up actually owning the whole kit and caboodle? How does that bit happen?
It's like anything; it happens over time, and you've got to be very specific with getting things done over there. They're culturally very good at 80% is good enough. Right. So I have the conversation over and over and over again. I'll say, it's not finished, it's not right. I go, yeah, but it's pretty close, isn't it? I go, no, this isn't a gray area. It's done or it's not. It's right or it's not. And so you sort of get to the point that if you don't control it, you really can't get it to where you want. So the success of everything we do is making sure that we produce Western style products, Western style quality, Western style manufacturing, Western style marketing, perception, customer service, all of that sort of crap. So the only way you can get things the way you want it is you've got to have your hand on the joystick. Otherwise, it's very, very difficult to do.
So having your hand on the joystick from Atlanta's means you must have some pretty high quality people as operations types managers on the shop floor, on the factory floor. Is that accurate?
Yeah, well, because they've all been trained by me. So
Yes.
you have to train them your way to do things the way you want them. And China historically is a very transient workforce. So when you're not earning a lot of money, if a guy down the road offers you a couple of dollars more, they go. And you can't blame them for that. So you have to get good people. You have to teach them yourself, and you've got to make sure that you're doing everything you need to do to retain them.
Yes.
So over there, people is easily the most difficult thing you have to do. And then, of course, remember there's language barriers. So my Chinese is shit. Um, I've discovered over the years that it's always going to be shit, and I'm never going to get good at it. So you've got to learn alternate systems to communicate your concepts. So you can't rely on just sitting down with someone and having a chat about things. You've got to find other ways to reinforce that knowledge as well, whether it be pictures. We always call it getting back to crayon. So usually if we're doing something new, we go back to crayons, and it's 2 colors, if that. You can even see behind me, I'm huge on whiteboards and markers and drawings and diagrams and alternate methods of learning things. But I've had to learn that over the last couple of decades.
Yeah, I mean, what's fascinating about that, and maybe it's not fascinating, but it's just a reality, is that, you know, so much of our brain is dedicated to our eyes. So doing crayon drawings, using whiteboards, and making things visual is such an effective way to communicate despite the language barrier.
Absolutely. And when you walk through my factory, it looks like a rainbow. Everything's color coded. Has to be. I'm a huge fan of color coding for things, visual cues.
Yeah,
So we've learned to do a lot of that. The other thing with your language skills being shit is you get very good at body reading. So I can tell if someone's telling me something that's not accurate just sitting across them, because I've had to learn to read information from people's demeanor.
Mm.
So I've got pretty good at that sort of stuff too. But it's interesting. It's like if you lose one of your senses, you develop the other ones. It actually feels very similar.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And good on you for being open to do that and being open to your innovation with your own learning style and your own communication style, Justin. Like, it's so powerful that you've done that. And I'm also, just for clarity's sake, is like from a US turnover point of view, what have you been able to grow it from to?
From what did we start at? We started at, nothing, 0. And everything we built had to be self-funded, self-cash flowed. So, it's like when you start a business, it's not like you say you walk into a bank and say, hey, I'm going to start this business. Can I have a couple of $1 million, thanks? They just laugh and go, no. Build your business, get it running, show it works, and then we'll think about giving you a couple of pennies, right? So we started from 0. And I would say this year probably give US 30 million a nudge.
Well,
thereabouts.
That's brilliant. Congratulations on that success over such a long
There
period.
is a little bit of my blood on every single one of those dollars, I assure you.
Oh, no doubt. I can see you looking a bit drained. No. You've actually got a drip going out the side of you at the moment.
Oh, I know.
Across the country, over the ocean to China.
Yeah, exactly.
You're currently bleeding as we go. Now, one of the reasons why we have decided to have this conversation is because we definitely wanted to talk about your business and what you've done there. But equally, you've done something quite extraordinary very recently about cross-cultural boundaries. And you have decided to create a volleyball tournament that might have happened to include your son, who's a very talented volleyball player, but
May have
created a competition, an Evo 1 Invitational tournament that went between the USA and various teams in China. Would you like to share with the audience what you've done, and then swing back to why you did it? Because that's the part of it. So I think we need to explain what you've actually done. And a beautiful thing that's being released in the USA just this weekend coming, which will be before folks see this episode. But what you've done, and then swing back to why you've done it.
We created a tournament. Like you said, my son plays volleyball. He's a graduating high school kid this year, graduating in a month or so. So he plays in a pretty high level of volleyball in high school level here in Atlanta. And obviously China's very strong in that sport. So when I was over there with the government guys in China, we were talking about it, and I was looking at videos of him playing when he was back here in Atlanta. And they said, well, we play this a lot here. You should bring him over. I thought about it, went, yeah, no, that's never going to happen. I'm never going to get around to that. And then I got home and I was thinking about it, and I thought, well, shit, he's in high school now. What an awesome opportunity, or an awesome time, to take him and a couple of his mates over to China and let them go train with a high-end Chinese team. The Chinese would get as much of a kick out of that as the American kids would. I said it'd expand their minds a little bit. So I thought, why not? And then it snowballed in a way that blew everybody's minds away. It snowballed so fast to the point that we ended up putting together an entire high school team here in Atlanta. And then I got 5 university teams in China, and we created our own entire tournament. And we did the whole thing from scratch. So created the tournament, designed the logos, created the uniforms, built the whole thing from scratch. So I used my company to sponsor it, being sort of strong at both ends. And we sat there for 3 months, wildly designing all this shit, doing nothing but writing checks. You know the adage, field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. You really wasn't sure they were going to come.
Yeah.
But it ended up being a very, very big event. The Chinese government got involved in it at the other end. In the province where we held the tournament, the university there is a massive sports university. So they have 3 campuses. They have about 30,000 people on all three campuses. They helped sponsor it and gave us their entire stadium to host it in. So we had Chinese, one of the Chinese Olympic coaches come down and train the boys. We had a 3-time Olympic gold medal, one of their ladies, come and spent the week with the boys. It was wild. It was on all Chinese news outlets. It got seriously out of control pretty fast.
And what do you think got the Chinese government, the province, the university, the TV news stations to get behind it? What do you think that was? I mean, from their motivation point of view, like why should they care?
Well, it kind of segues into what you and I were talking about with what I was saying about the communication differences and the issues that I have over there. And you know me pretty well, Gaz. I have more than one issue. We ended up doing it as not as a sporting event. We ended up doing it as a cultural exchange.
Yes.
And what happens is, especially with China, whenever there's a sporting event, it's usually a Chinese team coming to the US to play or going somewhere. It's very, very rare that anyone actually makes the effort to go over there and do something and do it for them and organize it for them. So the government was pretty excited, and they have departments that help with cultural exchange and cultural events. They push it pretty heavily. So the attention we got at that end was unbelievably big. So what we decided to do, because it snowballed so fast and became so big, I decided that we would get cameras and film the thing to just try and record it for prosperity. And that got out of control as well. So we ended up with an entire full TV quality film crew at both ends. So we filmed the boys training and their journey up to departure, and then had a full film crew follow them around and the teams around and film all the matches and stuff in China as well. So we ended up hiring a full editing movie crew and the whole thing, and it's being morphed into an hour-long documentary to record their journey. So it was interesting. And the theory of the whole thing and what we were trying to show is that even though these boys were older, they weren't young kids, right? So our boys were anywhere from 17, 18 mostly. The kids they were playing against were sort of 18 to 22. So little bit older, but it was funny when you got them over there and you put the boys in a room, no language. Some of the Chinese boys have some English, but not great, right? And our boys, Christ, they're American kids. Half of them are lucky to speak English, right? So we put them in a room. Within 30 minutes, what I did is I housed all the teams at a nice hotel. So even for the Chinese boys, being in a nice hotel for the week was a pretty big deal.
Yes.
Bought their clothing for them, bought their food for them. Even that for the Chinese kids was a big deal. You're talking about kids who don't have a lot of money.
Yes.
Within 30 minutes of mixing, the boys are all off in their hotel rooms together doing TikTok videos. No language communication between them. They just work shit out. They didn't need guidance. They didn't need all the things that we think we rely on. They were pretty nervous, obviously, going to a new country in such a wild environment like that. It didn't matter to them. And that's what we focused the entire documentary on, was that sport knows no boundaries. The cultural differences aren't differences when you give them a single commonality.
Mm.
So the volleyball and the sport was their commonality, and they just took the rest off from there. It was wild to watch. It was very, very cool.
So when did the sport knows no boundaries name even for you emerge? Was it post the event, or is it like during this experience of just watching it unfold and you went, I know I'm making a documentary. I didn't know that it was going to be actually about this now.
It came on pretty early because the government over there was very supportive because we're bringing American kids over.
Yep.
Now, you don't recognize the grandeur of that until you really get there. And it wasn't even until I knew the boys were going to be pretty famous when we got them there. I just knew that they would be. I didn't realize to the levels. Like the first match they played, by the time they finished playing the match, it probably took them an hour to get out of the building because they were signing autographs.
Wow. Wow. That would have freaked me out.
It was hilarious. The boys, and it's in that you see it in the documentary. Like the boys would talk about it. They'd go up to someone and say, "Hey," they'd come up shyly, "Hey, can you sign my T-shirt?" And the boys would go, "Sure." And they'd turn around, and then there's a line of 20 people behind them. Pictures of the boys holding people's babies, taking photos, and it was wild. They become little mini rock stars. They became superstars. But it was really cool that we showed them that, but it was kind of sad because no one had really ever taken the effort to go over there and do something like that for the people either.
Mm.
So it was very, very interesting. The whole thing was psychologically, sociologically very, very interesting. It was cool.
And your son's name?
Colt.
Colt. And
it's the OLT. He's an Aussie. He's a half-breed.
Yeah. So, Colt, like, what a life experience for you taking you away from being a CEO, taking you away from being an event organizer, take you away from being a documentary producer, as a father and a son. What an experience.
It was cool for him to see the other side of what we do, because I'd never really taken him over there to see the factory and things, because usually if I'm there, you're working, you're busy. It's a long way, so I try not to stay away too long, so you're moving fast. So it was cool for him to get over there and just get a scope of the size of what we do, and also get a feeling for the level of respect that we get over there because of what we do. So when we did it, like even the welcome dinner, there was probably 300 or 400 people in at the welcome dinner, all the sporting event, all the government hosts. So I had him. I had to speak, obviously, but I had him do part of the presentation. So he's had to get up there as an international ambassador and speak in front of 400 people with a translator. So the experiences that they got from it are pretty cool. And the theory of the whole thing was, to the boys, is all of their preconceptions on anywhere outside their homeland come from you and I. It's not from anything they've experienced. It's not from their personal opinions or their judgments. It's all from our brainwashing. So the idea was to get the boys over there, and we prepped them and primed them for it. When you get over there, make your own mind up about shit. Look at it and make your own opinion on it. Don't listen to what anybody else says. You make your own assessment on everything you see. And I dropped them right in the deep end with it. So they got no cultural niceties. There was not a knife or a fork to be seen for a week. Right? So they had full trial by fire because I wanted them to have to deal with the adversity.
Yes.
And it was, for them, it was no problem whatsoever. Now, a lot of the parents came over. They took an opportunity to come and see a different culture and country that they would never take the opportunity to go by themselves. They get to go while I'm there, so they get their hands held. They struggled.
Really? Yeah.
They struggled. They struggled. The boys, no big deal.
Yeah, that's interesting. Very.
Mm.
I'm not sure if that element would have been in the documentary. That was probably separate to it. I would assume.
No,
Yeah.
no. The documentary is 100% focused on the boys.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. That makes so much sense. And so,
Their opinions, their theories, what they saw, what they felt,
yeah.
what they believed.
All right. Now, everything I do with all of my work and the executive coaching and the business coaching is all about idea to action, right? Idea to action as fast as you possibly can. So I'm interested in some timeframes here. From that night when you came home when you were pondering about taking Colt over there to, well, next Saturday when the movie's released, the documentary's released.
It was way shorter than it should have been.
So tell me, what was that? How long we talking?
From me really making this decision to do it was March last year, to them being in China was August.
And then, of course, all the post-production stuff. I understand that takes 6 months, so that gets us to
Yeah, it does take a long time. The other side of it with the video editing, yeah, I mean, you can imagine you got thousands of hours of video and
yeah,
stuff you have to go through.
yeah,
But I'm always a big believer, especially in business, and I'm sure you see this a lot too. Anybody can have an idea. We all have ideas. Some of us actually start working on those ideas and try and make them happen. It's a very, 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 very small percentage of people who actually finish them. So it's that last 5% finishing what you start. That's the skill set. And that's probably one of the things that I'm best at. So once I made the decision to go ahead with this, I wasn't going to let go.
no, you're not going to quit, right? You're not going to quit. I'm like now you haven't said it right specifically, but you did mention how you got support back at home. You obviously got the high schools to come together to be able to get the team. So multiple high schools had to be involved. You had to communicate and pitch your story to the high schools for that to happen, of course, right? You've got parents that you had to pitch it to. Then, of course, you've got everyone over in China that had to be aware that this was the plan and who to get to do it. So you had to get attention. So not only is it idea and never quit, you had to get attention for this concept.
I had to prove the US end wasn't too bad actually, because for them it's a grand idea. It's a huge adventure, and because my company sponsored it, so it's not like they're going, oh, I don't have the money for it or any of that. It was quite easy to put the team and that side of things together in the USA. That side wasn't too hard. The China end was a lot harder because they hear a lot of concepts, but again, nobody ever does anything. Everyone talks about it, but no one actually ever does it. So not only did I have to go over there and say, this is the one I'm going to do. Are we going to get government approval to do this stuff? Because you have to over there. I can have all the grand ideas in the world and say I'm going to fly a team over there. If they don't want me to do it, you're not. So you've got to get, and we're fairly connected over there. So we got some pretty high people on our team anyway, but until they go, all right, you may, sir, you don't know. So to prove it was real, I had to go ahead and just start spending money and doing it to show them and prove that it was real. I actually created an entire hard copy printed book of the tournament. I had to create the logo and everything for the tournament. I had to do all of the marketing and create all the design aesthetic for it before I even knew if I was going to get approval to actually go. Because I had to give them something, and we made hard copy books. I had to give them something that was tangible that says, I'm doing this, whether you support me or not. And then just walked away and said, shit, I hope they support me or we're in trouble. Right? but I told them I was just going to go ahead. This is coming. Get on board or don't. We are going ahead with this, and that was the only way we got it done.
And so you mentioned the stadium at the university. Like, how many did it seat?
2,000.
2,000. So
it was a big
in the YouTube clip that I've seen, it looked like it was full.
We had a lot of people. The boys were even talking about the last match they played. They played against the university team from that stadium.
Okay.
And even the boys said it was a lot of people. It was a lot of people. And we made a few mistakes on the way, as you can imagine. But it was masses of people. And what we did too is, because we designed all the kit for the boys, all the clothes, the uniforms, and that was super cool. Our design aesthetic was amazing. We did a really, really good job with it. It was cool because you can imagine making building materials for housing. What we do isn't terribly sexy. Now I think we make it sexier than most. We do it pretty well. But so to let my marketing team off the leash and let them go play with something that is actually sexy, they had a hell of a lot of fun with it.
Oh, that's so
and we ended up, a lot of the design aesthetic for that, we ended up morphing it back into the business, to be honest. It taught us a lot. But what we did is we created all the textiles we did for the boys. What we did is we actually created t-shirts for the crowd. So whenever the American boys played, there was 6 teams, right? So it rotated. Whenever the American boys played, everybody who came to the match got a free t-shirt.
Wow, that's your marketing genius.
Yeah. So, and because over there, an American style, American branded t-shirt, they were going to come just to get the t-shirt, whether they wanted to watch the match or not.
Now I know you're the CEO and the business owner. I understand that. But did you face any negativity from people around you about this? Like, did you have any naysayers?
Yeah. You can imagine as the support we got at the China end was significant. It was significant. Just whether it be government or helping us with transport. I mean, my organizational team at the China end was a team of about 15 people.
Wow.
Just full-time working on the organization. You can imagine just the movements that feeding 200 boys, putting them up into a hotel, moving around to the tournaments. Then you've got your referees or your line staff. You've got a couple of thousand people in and out of the stadium. You've got to have police. It was a big deal for our boys to be there. So they're getting mobbed by a lot of people. So we had to have security and all of that sort of stuff around them. It was a lot. So the government over there was very, very good. The police were very, very good. The organizational, a lot of volunteers that helped us was very, very good. I couldn't even get a local city American politician to come to a training match because they are very anti-China politically. Even being the fact that we were trying to do it as a cultural exchange for the boys from local town, we 100% got ghosted from the American end.
Yeah,
which is a little disappointing.
Yeah.
So we didn't get any backlash from it or any conflict from it or any actual defense against doing it, but we sure as shit didn't get any help. It was 100% on me.
Yeah, okay. I'm not surprised. I mean, I mentioned Grant Cardone to you a little bit earlier, and one of his major mentors is a guy called Bob Duggan. I don't know if you know Bob at all, but very, very successful human being. And it was interesting. He was talking about we ought to be focusing on making humanity great.
Exactly right. And this had nothing to do with politics.
Yes, this was about
nothing to do. It was all about the kids. It was all about teaching the kids to think a little bit differently, make friends from abroad to keep in touch with. I mean, those boys, who knows, even the Chinese boys, who knows where they'll end up in life.
100%. Yeah. And who knows what those friendships, I mean, you can't unfriend those friendships. They just, some of them will survive. There's no question. Somehow.
Right. And it teaches them to make those sort of connections when making those connections isn't easy.
No. Now, folks, it's called Evolution Limited, which is Justin's company, Justin Fuller's company. We'll have all the links in the show notes for you. And one of the links is to the preview of the documentary, which is available already on YouTube. So we'll have that there. And as soon as the documentary hopefully makes its way to YouTube at some point in time in the future, we'll go and add that into the show notes for that as well. In the meantime, if you go and search for Sport Knows No Boundaries, folks, hopefully one of the TV channels will have picked it up and you'll be able to catch it online to really go and experience that amazing cultural exchange that Justin was able to catalyze. And You think of when we get to our part of our life, Justin, you do start thinking about legacy if you haven't thought about it before. And while so much of this story was on one level accidental, um, but as you said, you got an idea and you said, "Hey, no, bugger this, I'm going to go for it. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to make it happen." But to create a legacy of who knows really what that legacy is going to end up is just such a beautiful. It's beautiful what you've done. It's the word that just comes to mind. It's joyful as well.
It was cool. And I didn't, honestly, you're so deep in it, you don't really notice it when you're doing it. And it was easily, I've done some pretty hard shit. It was easily the hardest thing I've ever done. If anyone ever says to you making a movie is easy, they are lying. It's very, very hard. It wasn't till I got time when we finished it and I got to sit back at home with a beer and watch it that you realize the scale of actually what we achieved and what we did. And it did cross my mind that we've actually created something that's going to outlive us, which is kind of cool.
And look, I'm a big believer in business for good. And it's why I'm very passionate about businesses being financially successful and why they ought to generate wealth. Because there is an element to this story where if you did not have a successful business that was able to sponsor this, the idea to action part might have had a pretty big bridge to get across, right?
Oh, totally. There was no sponsorship in this. There was 100% my company.
Yeah, yeah.
And even the beautifully talented Argentinian editor that we've got who's working on this, and she's a professional documentary editor. The reason I got her is because I told her, I don't care if we don't sell it.
Yes.
So you're absolutely right. If I wasn't in a position where I could do that, it wouldn't have happened.
Yes.
So the business was successful enough that it could support doing something that we wanted to do, not something we had to do. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it is really cool. And look, and I did really want to highlight that aspect of the message because I think I'm not exactly sure why, but I think over the last few decades, largely in Australia, there's been a lot of negativity about the success of business people. It's like, well, hold on. Successful business people can do a lot of really good things, and they do a lot of really good things, and you don't know about it, right?
Right.
And that's why as soon as I found out that what you'd done, I'm like, we got to talk about this. I want to get you on the podcast. I want to share the good news with people, tell the story, encourage people to go watch that documentary. But even more importantly, your core message of go and experience the world yourself and then make up your own mind was such a beautiful message, Justin.
Yeah, don't listen. I mean, I've become a little bit cynical in my old age, I must admit, but you can't take people's concepts as valid unless you've validated it yourself. And you've got to look at it from a clean slate. You've got to see it with your own eyes. You've got to make your own opinions on it. And one of the reasons that we got a lot of traction with this too is because we're finding lately, and a lot of it's probably just because of the exposure we have, but there's a lot of racial bullshit that's out there now. So we're getting interest from a lot of the public television networks in the USA to air this thing because it's anti-hate.
Yes.
It's the exact opposite of what everything's being publicized. It's us saying we don't care about racial boundaries. We don't care about geographical boundaries. We don't care about linguistic boundaries. We'll just find a way.
And clearly neither did the Chinese.
Couldn't have cared less.
So I really want to thank you for making yourself available in your evening to come and have this conversation with us, Justin. As I've said already, we'll make sure that there's all the information for Justin's company in the links, as well as for the documentary and the YouTube shorts. So we'll update them over time as well. I do always like to ask this somewhat surprising question for some at the end of the interview. And that is, we are called the Moving Beyond Being Good podcast. What for you does the phrase moving beyond being good mean?
You've always got to focus on being better. Especially with what I do in manufacturing, and I do it in pretty hard, difficult places, it can always be a little better. And it doesn't matter if it's something you're making, it doesn't matter if it's you personally, it's never finished. It can always be a little bit better.
What a beautiful way to describe it. And how would you say this experience with the tour made you better?
Oh, it changed me a lot, actually. It changed me significantly how I looked at things. China's taught me, I mean, you knew me when I was young, so everybody knows. Gaz was my footy coach. I knew Gaz when I was, I don't know, 22,
29
whatever it was,
years ago now, mate.
or 21, a long time ago. And I must admit, I did have a few arrogance issues. It's taught me a lot of humility. It's taught me to assess things before I react. So a lot of the time, especially over there, and especially during this documentary, when someone would tell you something, you immediately blow up or react to it. But often what you were reacting to wasn't actually what happened. The way they've described it to you wasn't quite right, or what actually happened wasn't the way that they're picturing. So doing this whole thing has taught me to really, really make sure I understand what's happening or what someone's telling me before I speak about everything. So, and I noticed the difference finishing this thing this week, that I don't think I've become more patient, but I think I analyze people's statements, or I analyze scenarios a lot more before I make judgment or voice opinion than I did.
It's interesting that on that very topic, with the client that I'm about to work with next in a group leadership program with a company that's all over Australia, is we're focusing on how to slow down from jumping to conclusions, which is exactly what you've just described. And being
slow down, think a little bit, make the right decisions, and don't do the circle thing.
Yeah, mate. Oh, look, I look forward to the opportunity to catch up in person when you're next in Melbourne, or I'm in Atlanta, and you never know, we might be in China as well at some point in time. So honestly, it's been a delight chatting with you. Folks, I look forward to you popping some comments down below. Thanks for coming along and joining us on the Moving Beyond Being Good podcast, Justin.
Pleasure, Gav.
So folks, remember, make sure you like the episode, subscribe to the channel, make sure you don't miss out. The more folk that are subscribing to the channel, we're just about to tick over 45,000 subscribers, helps us continue to get awesome guests like Justin Fuller with amazing stories like you've just heard. Please do so. It does help the channel with the folk that we get to speak with. Thanks again for coming along. We look forward to seeing you all next time.